We continue on page 441. The Queen's questioning mind. His grandeur he turns to an epic of doom and fall. His littleness crawls content through squalor and mud. So even when man rises to some height of glory because of good fortune, because of his strength, because of grace, he is quick to slide down into the mud. And we know stories of great civilizations will fell down and fell down so precipitously. Kurukshetra, we know the famous battle. And what happened to a civilization which had risen to what heights of glory, wisdom, strength, and yet it came down so badly. Epic of doom and fall. At the same time, he is not able to contain that greatness and glory. And on the other side, the littleness of man, one is content with that. This is what the Queen is saying. It's so true. We are so happy with the littleness of knowledge, the littleness of hopes, with littleness of effort, with littleness of achievements, with littleness of joy. Even we celebrate it, that life is about small joys and small griefs. But we are meant for something else. The vessels of a deathless force. This contentment is not a happy and healthy contentment. It's a contentment of the animal kind, which is content with its round of desires, small small lusts, little happiness. It eats and is very happy, satisfied, and then sleeps in the mud, rolls in the mud, doesn't think of anything greater, anything larger. That's why in Durga's throat, Sri Aurobindo says, Mata Durge, make our efforts great, Mahat Prayasi. Not just for smallness. He calls heaven's retribution on his head and wallows in his self-made misery, a part author of the cosmic tragedy. His will conspires with death and time and fate. So, it's true that in the cosmos there is an ignorance, there is all kinds of forces which are there. But we also, it seems that we make pact with those very things, those very forces which are going to write our downfall and ruin. The mother speaks of this very interestingly in the agenda. She says the difference between freedom and independence to start with. And man was given this sense of independence, this sense of freedom. But he doesn't understand true freedom. True freedom comes by uniting with the divine will. That is the only possible freedom. So what man does, the moment he gets his sense of freedom, he immediately makes a pact with the forces of the vital Asuric worlds. Very beautifully she describes. And he invites them, calls them. This freedom was given to him so that he can really ascend to heights of glory. Instead of remaining content with the low and the ugly, he can choose, make a conscious choice. That's why the freedom is there. It can give a great boost to evolution. But instead he says, Wah, I have got my freedom. So I am going to make my choice. And the choice he makes is a pact with all the dark forces. And the result is chaos and doom. So we become part author of our tragedy. Even with fate. Already, let's say there is an illness. So there is a problem, there is an illness, and it's a difficult time. But how do we become part authors of the tragedy? We pass a sentence upon it even before the doctor has passed the sentence. In our thoughts, in our feelings, in our suggestions, we bring in fear, we bring in all kinds of disastrous things. A simple viral fever looks like cancer straight away. Nowadays swine flu. So we become like this part authors of our own tragedy. And we almost feel a joy in, I think there is a case of swine flu in Pondicherry. Pondicherry is such a huge population, and one is picked up for a small flu-like symptom that there is one case. So, when you tell, no, there is not yet any case in Pondicherry. No, I have heard about the case. Now you see, so many people survive, few die. But we in our thoughts invariably encourage all that is dark and negative. As if we invite that, come, give me a blow. So we become part authors. His brief appearance on the enigmaed earth ever recurs but brings no high result. To this wanderer through the aeon rings of God that shut his life in their vast longevity, his soul's wide search and ever returning hopes pursue the useless orbit of their course in a vain repetition of lost toils across a track of soon forgotten lives. And this logic, a lot of people give to suggest that there can be no transformation, because they say, look at the past experience. There were such great civilizations and they collapsed. And really, if one looks at Mother and Sri Aurobindo lives, it seems that they were the only ones who really believed in the transformation. Totally convinced. And why? Because they had seen the truth. A word is spoken from the heights. A moment sees, the ages toil to express. They had seen it and they knew it. But everywhere that, it has never happened before. Vedic rishis never could achieve it. Look where they have gone. We don't even know whether such rishis existed or not. These kinds of logic, even a Vedic civilization which was so high, and other civilizations, Chaldea, Atlantis, they have collapsed. So the queen is using this logic that Narad, it seems, this whole creation is futile. She is going through a state of vairagya. It's like Arjuna's vairagya. She has gone through a personal disappointment, and because her daughter is facing an adverse fate, everything in creation is appearing to her futile. This is how our perception gets colored. All is an episode in a meaningless tale. There is no sense in it. And then she starts those wonderful questions. Sometimes, that's why in Arjuna's, in the Gita, the first chapter is titled aptly and beautifully as Vishad Yog. We all go through depression, despair, moments of anguish. But we don't know how to turn it into yoga. It's also an opportunity. And the mother speaks of that several places. We go through grief. The queen is going through an anticipated grief. This is also uniquely human. What is going to happen tomorrow? We suffer for that today. Many times in anticipation. But fortunately, like Arjuna, she begins to turn this grief into a kind of Vishad Yoga. How does Vishad or state of grief turn into a yoga? By turning it towards the divine, even if there is a questioning ignorance. She doesn't simply stop there, that, oh, what a fate, God is cruel. Now she raises questions, which will soon change into an aspiration. Why is it all? And wherefore are we here? This is a question, like a key question, and the mother recommends this in some of her early talks, that we should raise this question to ourselves. Why are we here? Why are we born if only to die? Why there is love? Why does love has to turn into hate? Why is there pain and suffering? So she is raising this question, why all this creation? All these civilizations collapse. Because from here the yoga of transformation will open. If these questions don't arise in us, and if we are satisfied with these standard stock theories, which we have heard so far, then the only door is escape. So then we don't bother why the cosmos is there. All that we need is, it's a horrible place, and look at history. The only thing that we got to do is find one route of escape. This is the only escape. And if we can't find it, Then the other route that people choose, the darkest, most dangerous route is self-harm. That, well, this is painful. I can't bear it. So either an escape into nirvana or an escape through the dark door. So she asks, why is it all? And wherefore are we here? If to some being of eternal bliss, it is our spirit's destiny to return, or some still impersonal height of endless calm, since that we are, and out of that we came, whence rose the strange and sterile interlude, lasting in vain through interminable time? Question of questions should be asked to every spiritual guru who advocates that, ultimately our goal is bliss and calm. And there are beautiful books, and this is an experience. I am that. Tat Tvamasi. Soham Asmi. So if that is true, I am that in my fundamental part, why I had to go through all this process to discover something which already I was? Who subjected me to this? And why? What was the purpose? If the end is the same as the beginning, then truly it must be a very perverted God who would take pleasure in subjecting the souls to this kind of a dark experience, mixed experience, at best a maimed pleasure, only at the end to realize that, look, you know what? You have forgotten. You are child of bliss, go back there. Well, why did we forget? Who made us forget? And why we ended up in this way? Of course, Sri Aurobindo says, this answer is not here right now, but since this question has been raised, it comes much later in Savitri. That the end had to be greater than the beginning. There is something which is not there in the beginning. It is there potentially, but not fully manifested. That's why creation has started. It's not simply, there was a mistake, an error, because otherwise it will be either a cruel God or a God who made a big mistake and realized that he has made a big mistake, and all that he comes is tell us, look, I'm sorry. It's an error, this creation. Come back. I'll take you to that home of bliss. So all these replies are anticipated, because that's not what Narada is going to say. Narada is going to reply at the level of PhD. So all the other replies which we have been told, Queen is already raising them. Who willed to form or frame a universe in the cold and endless emptiness of space? Formed. As if these forms are real. Feigned. Because we are also told it is an illusion, it's a trick. So who created this trick, this kind of an illusion, and then trapped us into it? Who did this and why? In this cold and empty space? Or if these beings must be, and their brief lives, what need had the soul of ignorance and tears? Even if God wanted to create a universe, galaxies and all this, because he enjoys watching it, why put characters into it? Souls. It's fine. Create something and watch it. But why, bring that kind of those characters? Whence rose the call for sorrow and for pain? Or all came helplessly without a cause? This also is another theory. And some theories are very weird. That this universe is born out of desire. And a lot of people are attracted to it because it sounds very much like us. And this used to be one of the debates that Sri Aurobindo would have with mother's husband. He believed that universe is born out of desire. And Sri Aurobindo would say, no, it is born out of ananda. So what is this experience of pain and sorrow? So who compelled this kind of a creation which is full of sorrow and pain? Or did it all come helplessly without a cause? What power forced the immortal spirit to birth? The eternal witness once of eternity, a deathless sojourner and transient scene amid a deathless sojourner mid transient scenes. He camps in life's half-lit obscurity. Amid the debris of his thoughts and dreams, or who persuaded it to fall from bliss and forfeit its immortal privilege? So we have these stories where God has chased away from a beautiful state of consciousness, from heaven, from paradise, and the souls have been doomed, condemned. Some of them condemned eternally in some eternal darkness. And Mother says that many of the gods of the so-called religions are asuras. In the sense that man has created them in the image of asura. Because it's not, the divine is infinite, but we, to handle life, we need to cut him into bits and parts. So we develop this thought because it's very comforting, it's easy to handle. That we were that, but somehow we have fallen, some maya came in, some desire came in, somehow it happened, it's an accident or whatever it be. And now the only way is to come out. It's a very, very comfortable and convenient thought. At one level, it absolves the divine. So it's not his fault. Some power did it. On the other hand, it absolves us of looking deep and thinking wide about larger issues. Why should I bother why the world is the way it is? My issue is my prison, my escape. That's why Sri Aurobindo says that even nirvana is ultimately an egoistic desire. And for this yoga of transformation, one has to be freed even from this last desire. Last desire to dissolve in like a wave in that ocean. And we see that the Divine Mother herself in Savitri, she's offered this boon. That dissolve in that sea with Satyavan if you want. And she says no. A lonely freedom cannot satisfy a heart that has grown one with every heart. My spirit's liberty I ask for all. Who laid on it the ceaseless will to live? And the paradox is that though we all say this world is bad, all illusionist philosophies gloat over it. This world is an illusion. And then they enjoy the illusion like anybody's guess. And if you tell them, the food you are eating, it's an illusion. The attachment you feel for your children and family is an illusion. Do you know that? The position for which you are striving is an illusion. The money in your bank is an illusion. For sure it's an illusion because mostly it's on paper. But no, that's a different thing. While we are living on earth, we have to do all this. So, how we cheat ourselves, how we deceive ourselves. And this is so widespread. And no wonder people find it very difficult to understand Sri Aurobindo because we have filled our minds with these thoughts. Much better to struggle with life and take it as a challenge, even if you don't believe in something higher. That's a much better state. Mother speaks of that. At least such a soul is on its path of preparation for a greater truth. Than to simply believe like a defeatist that life is an illusion and let me find my little door, my private berth in heaven. And we go to so many gurus doing guru shopping for some technique, some method which will catapult us, launch us into heaven. But what is the result, end result? It is there in our stories. Trishanku tried it. And Sri Aurobindo says this very categorically here. Whoever tries to leave her will not have rest. Because wherever he is, nature is there. It is not going to leave. Only with her grace you can cross over. She will not allow. She will see whether you are thoroughly prepared or not. No technique, no method. No one can do it. That preparedness is required. A wanderer in this beautiful, sorrowful world, only the Lord can write like this. At one place he writes, delightful, dangerous world. Beautiful, sorrowful world. Not just anityam asukham. Such a great line seen from. But this is one side of the truth. There is in it both. There is lot of beauty. This he says in the Life Divine. That first of all, let us take the facts of existence. They who say this world has only sorrow, it's not quite true. If we take the sum of experiences in life, much, much greater would be joys. In fact, sorrow strikes as an anomaly when first time we confront it, when we face it, precisely because the undercurrent of life is joy. It's not sorrow. But unfortunately, that sometimes that 5% sorrow can be so intense, so painful. We may be so overwhelmed by it. It's so abnormal to our intuition about life that we may start looking at everything with a painted picture. But the sum total of life is not sorrow. It is primarily joy. A joy in evil and a joy in good. A joy in virtue and a joy in sin. A joy in the mud and a joy in the sky. A secret bliss is at the root of things. That's why there is a joy and will to live in this beautiful, sorrowful world and bear its load of joy and grief and love. Birth of a child is such a happy event, but it comes with a big, heavy load. Till the end, parents are always, they may not be worried about anything, but for the child they are always worried at some level or the other. But one bears it. It's a load of love. The divine bears this creation. It's a load of love. So who put this will inside the human heart to bear the cross of suffering with joy and love? Or if no being watches the works of time, Buddhism, anatma, no being. It has just somehow come into, then who is escaping? Sri Aurobindo raises this question. Then who really escapes from the bandhan? Who really is tied, bound, and who is mukt? So all these different philosophies, otherworldly, Sri Aurobindo is summarily, through the Queen, clearing a clear ground that these are imperfect answers. Let's do away with them. Or if no being watches the works of time, what hard impersonal necessity compels the vain toil of brief living things? Sansar. What compels the world to move on? What is the power behind it? The stars, the galaxies in their orbits, the atoms whirling, the earth itself moving at incredible speed. Jagatyam Jagat. What is that power which is compelling it to move? What kind of necessity is this? A great illusion then has built the stars. The big problem of this illusion theory is, now Sri Aurobindo is bringing to the forefront. But where then is the soul's security? Its poise in this circling of unreal suns. And that's why in Buddhism, even the great states of consciousness have to be discarded. Because there is a logic in Buddha. That way, from a pure, rational, pragmatic point of view, he made a system which is very perfect. That's why it appeals to a logical mind. But there is one basic flaw in it that will come up very soon. But the thing is that if all is an illusion, it's quite possible that our vision of Hari may be an illusion. Where is the end? So where is the soul security? Our experience may be an illusion. So here he brings so beautifully, where is the soul security? Or else it is a wanderer from its home who strayed into a blind alley of time and chance and finds no issue from a meaningless world. Or where begins and ends illusion's reign. So when we say that world is an illusion, somebody may well say that even God is an illusion. In fact, that's how, if you really strictly go into Buddhism, That experience is also an illusion. But then there is a key question there. Perhaps the soul we feel is only a dream. In that case, nobody is bound, nobody is free. Because there is nothing which is permanent. But this is actually a misunderstanding of Buddha's teachings. And Mother has spoken about it. That's why she took pains to give her talks on Dhammapada. This was something which she had to do. Because Gautama the Buddha came to her in one of her prayers. She is signed as Sakya Muni. And there was a conversation. And when Mother was asked, Mother, who is Sakya Muni? Sri Aurobindo was asked that Mother has signed one of the prayers as Sakya Muni. So Sri Aurobindo says, you don't know Sakya Muni? The king, the name of Buddha. So, and then another place Mother says, Buddha refused nirvana and he is still there working on earth but not in a physical body. She has gone so precise to say that. So this is not what Buddha meant. And Sri Aurobindo in one of his poems, he made it very clear that Buddha didn't mean this. He says Buddha is strong, mighty, tramples over desires and ego. He is a heroic spirit. And now in the name of Buddha we have, pot bellies and world shunning people. It's not easy the way Buddha walked out of life, out of palace with all the riches. For what? For a cosmic issue. For a cosmic problem, and his love and compassion where he accepts if everything is illusion, the way it is interpreted. Then when somebody offered him meat to eat, Buddha who believed in total non-violence and who would never touch, he's a vegan of vegans. So when meat is offered to him, Buddha partakes it, smiles and partakes it. This story is told as Buddha's compassion. By doing it, this was his supreme blessing to this man who had offered with love. And he took it and he died after that. So if all he regarded as illusion, he would have said, who are you? My goal is nirvana. There is nothing else. But his life doesn't show that. Even Sri Aurobindo's life, we have such stories, but Sri Aurobindo never spoke in this way. When somebody offered to him fish much later in Pondicherry, and people remarked, he doesn't take now any non-veg. Sri Aurobindo sat quietly and all is Brahman. He took it. Now, it's not just an ordinary taking. We may just pass off this as one of those acts of equality. It's a supreme blessing when the divine accepts something from a heart which is given with love. We don't know what he would have done to someone who would have offered him this food. We can never understand. Perhaps the soul we feel is only a dream, eternal self a fiction, sensed in trance. So, if this is true, then trance and all the experiences, it's also perhaps a fiction. Because this is how logic will lead us. It's just a next logical step. So this is how Queen states the problem. And we see that Queen's questions are at 3 different levels. First, her reaction is that you have made a wrong choice. Why did you choose him? She says, no, I have chosen. Then she says, maybe this Shalva boy has come to, cancel or balance some karmic account. It is evil. She blames it on others. This is how human beings go through these stages. So Sri Aurobindo, like a supreme psychologist. And most will end the question there. They will say, well, it was karma. This suffering she had to undergo. What to do? Doesn't matter. If he has to die, he has to die. When he dies, we will see. Right now, she doesn't understand. We are, after all, kings and queens. We will look for another suitable match. Let her go through this experience. This is a karmic transaction. So, second level, Queen raises this. And if she would have stopped at that, we wouldn't have got this reply. But like Arjuna, she turns her grief into a yoga. She questions the presence of pain and suffering upon earth. So from personal, she raises this question to a cosmic level. That's why Savitri is often called as a cosmic poem. And that aspect of cosmic poem, it comes at several places. But it comes most powerfully in the Book of Fate. Because Queen's question is now no more personal. She goes into the very, because personal ends by saying that, accepting the standard argument that some karma I don't know, or simply disbelieving. God knows why it is there, it's cruel destiny. But now she raises significant questions that Narada, why God created this world? Just like Buddha also turns grief into a yoga when he sees a dying person, when he sees a sick person, when he sees an aging person, he turns this sight into a yoga. But what do we do when we see an aging person? We look for a medical store where this anti-aging cream is available. Or antoxids. So this is the difference between Buddha and us. That we are all the time worried about problems at an individual level. Now the beauty is, we cannot solve a problem individually unless we have understood its cosmic dimension. Things they are not because of me. Things they are because of the way creation is, and I am a part of creation, therefore I am part of that same plan, that same suffering. It's not that for me something has been planned specifically that this guy is going to age and have problems. It's part of, even the doctors who prescribe anti-aging creams and vitamins, they grow old. Nobody realizes it. But of course, thanks to these creams and the patients, they make their child's financial future little more secure. But that's a different thing altogether. So they are doing a good job from a personal point of view. Why shouldn't? The fact is they grow old. They grow wrinkles. They grow bald. They lose teeth. And eventually they pass the same way. Even in the best medical hospitals in the world, people have heart attacks. They die. I had very funny incidents as an intern. One of our topmost cardiologists. It was an amazing sight. I still remember that had touched me very deep. We all used to look up to him. Such an astute cardiologist that he would literally could pick up things like this. So in his 70, he had a heart attack. So he was admitted to a hospital, big hospital, and we all, came in contact with him. So he asked the doctor who was treating him to show his ECG. His ECG was pretty bad. Ventricular fibrillation, all this. So he was hesitant. No, you take rest. No, you show me, I'm fine. So he showed the ECG. He said, I think my time has come, I'm done. And the person on whom people looked up like a god, that he is going to save me even if whatever happens. Many times people were saved probably because of the faith invested. Faith is a great power, and of course there are medicines. But there comes a point where it's a dead end. So there is an individual answers will always be limited answers. That's why people who say that, well, I'm not bothered about these issues. Why should I bother? My issue is my daily dal roti. Then we will never be really able to solve the enigma of life. And this is what we see today happening even at a national level. What really is our identity? What is the real issue? What is the problem? But we are interested in our everyday life. Then the problems will come, change their face, again come, change their face. So whether we want to solve them at an individual level or go to its roots. And since Savitri is a cosmic poem, the answer also has to be something which touches the roots of the problem. Buddha found one answer. He also raised the question to a cosmic level. And he gave his answer. How we have understood it, that's a different thing. Krishna also gave an answer. He turned Arjuna's grief and war into a cosmic battle between good and evil, truth and divine and undivine, and gave an answer for all times to come. And now we have Sri Aurobindo's answer to this problem of evil, pain and suffering. And this answer has been dealt in two places most vividly, in the Life Divine and of course in Savitri. Then, after a silence, Narad made reply. Every word that Sri Aurobindo uses is so beautiful and perfect. If we were to write it, we would say, then after a silence, Narad gave reply. Or Narad replied. He's saying Narad made reply. There is a truth which is self-evident, where this knowledge is there. Now it has to be turned into a body of words. And these words or ideas have to be changed into body of words and sounds and expressed. Therefore, made reply. It is, the raw material is the truth. Now it has to be turned into something which human consciousness can understand. What a perfectionist Sri Aurobindo is, that every word is so marvelous. So he says, tuning his lips to earthly sound he spoke. The whole process of speech which we have in our scriptures about the four levels of the word, Paravak, Pashyanti Vak, Vaikhari and Madhyama and Vaikhari, all this and much more, he is bringing in one single stroke. And something now of the deep sense of fate, waited the fragile hints of mortal speech. Again, this is marvelous. Fragile hints. The mother says at one place that human speech is so inadequate that it cannot express the supramental vision at all. It's impossible. Because in the supramental state, we see 1,000 possibilities at the same time. Whereas in speech, it is successive. It cannot be simultaneous. Even if we were to describe, we have to pick and choose this and that. That's why Sri Aurobindo was very hesitant. In fact, he never fixed a date. Because simultaneously there are so many things together which you see. And depending upon the stress on one or the other, one can change things. That's why it's so difficult to, in fact, impossible actually, to quote from Sri Aurobindo without inevitably turning it into the recipient's mind into something which may well be not true. Because what Sri Aurobindo is saying is a total truth. And that's why Mother said that you should read, to know what Sri Aurobindo has said about a given subject, one should read everything that he has written on a subject. And she was very clear that Sri Aurobindo should be read not by books, but by subjects. It's there in her writings. Not by books, but by subject. So we pick up a subject. That's how Arya was there. So subjects, so different subject, all that he has written on a particular subject. Say on Yagna, he has written in essays on the Gita, he has written in letters on yoga, he has written in the Upanishads, he has written it in the secret of the Vedas. So everywhere where he writes about Yagna, and then when we see it, gives a total picture. Or about any aspect of human life. Otherwise, he can be misunderstood. So it's so difficult. So Narad has to now reveal a truth only through fragile hints of mortal speech. The problem of mortal speech is that it hides, or of everything mortal, the eyes for instance. What the eyes hide is much more important than what they reveal. So what do we see when people come? Smiling face, smart, well-dressed, good looks, and pleasant talk. The person may be harboring inside something very wicked and vile, and we cannot see it. We cannot hear it. And behind all that, the presence of the divine. So what we don't see is much more important. Similarly, what we don't speak, what we hold back, is often much more important than what we speak. And that is why when people live together for a long time, they understand not the words, but the consciousness behind the words. And it creates so much of problem. Because they know you are speaking this but we know what you are meaning. And then the person will say, no, 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 I didn't mean this. See, next time I will record what you have spoken. It's not about what one has spoken. At that point of time, all transactions are eventually transactions of consciousness. And speech is very often like a credit card. So, it changes its value in terms of consciousness. It's just like a capsule which we swallow, and what is inside the capsule? It may be green color, red color, blue color, orange color, but the content is important. We may sugarcoat it, we may in whatever, but if we focus not on the outside, but on the content, then we'll begin to really understand. But it's so difficult because it can only give a hint, a suggestion. So here it comes. Waited the fragile hints of mortal speech. His forehead shone with vision solemnized. Now this whole passage indicates that Narada suddenly entered into a supernormal state of consciousness. He is a seer already. But now what he is going to reveal is something coming from a very high plane. Turned to a tablet of supernal thoughts, as if characters of an unwritten tongue. Again, that speech which cannot really be written, it does not descend. He is tapping now from Pashyanti and the Paravak, unwritten tongue. And actually, there are surely lipis which don't exist in this world, at least not to our cognizance. Sri Aurobindo himself has written some sentences in a lipi, in a format which no one knows what language it is in the present or the past. Very often you would see Akashic records, the gods writing, unwritten tongue. And Sri Aurobindo was often trying to decipher in the beginning, when in Chandanagar he would ask him, Motilal Roy, why are you gazing like this? He would say, I am looking, these gods, they are coming and making some signs and writing something. I am trying to understand what they are trying to say. Obviously, they were not saying in any of the known languages. Because Sri Aurobindo, already in his Baroda days, he had learned Sanskrit, he had learned all the English and French. Sri Aurobindo knew practically so many languages. The gods couldn't be, even if they spoke Latin, he would understand. So what was the language in which they were writing and speaking? Which was difficult. And Sri Aurobindo was tuning himself. The unwritten tongue. It's a different world altogether. As if characters of an unwritten tongue had left in its breath the inscriptions of the gods. Bare in that light, time toiled, his unseen works detected, the broad-flung, far-seeing schemes, unfinished, which his aeoned flight unrolls, were mapped already in that worldwide look. Because he has raised the question to a cosmic dimension. When she asked that, tell me my daughter's fate, that's all. But now the question is of a cosmic dimension, so Narad cast his gaze far and wide and deep. And suddenly, his gaze spreads out to see the whole world come within its grasp. And that is so difficult to express, and yet he tries to express it through this language. Like Ganesha expressing what Vyasa saw. It's a very symbolic story, because what he saw could not be expressed in a normal way. It was a total vision of things. He was also a Trikaldrishi. So when he's expressing, he needs somebody who can, possibly even on typewriter couldn't have, but only a god could write like this, flawless. And he was so quick receiving all this that he had to, time and again, Ganesha had needed to stop. So, Ganesha had told him that you won't stop. So time and again Vyasa would say some cryptic verses which Ganesha also wouldn't understand. Look the height from which it came. So he had to ask, what have you said, sir? And that was enough for him to tap again. The only parallel we find in our times after Vyasa, Valmiki, and perhaps Homer is Sri Aurobindo. And of course, Nirodha writing and speech flowing, sometimes 200 lines. What kind of a seeing is this? So Narada has to now answer Queen's query from a cosmic level. So we'll take a break, 10 minutes, and come back.